program.
What you talking about?
The program. The program. Get with the program.
Everybody clap to this. Say what?
Get with the program.
It starts now.
Hello and welcome to Get With The Program Radio Show. I'm your host, Gary Jones. Get With The Program Radio Show is a multicultural, informative, relevant, and entertaining one-hour weekly show offering you a diverse combination of guest interviews, and we will act as a positive source of information. Now today we will be joined in the studio with Miss Linda Wilkins-Daniels. She is the president of the African American Caucus of the North Carolina's Democratic Party. And our conversation today is the concerns and the role of the caucus. That's going to be a quite interesting conversation because we really want to know what they do, what their roles are, and also some of the issues that they're kind of taking care of right now, what their concerns are. But before we get to that, right now, I want to reach out to my man, comedian Gravedigger. Gravedigger, I know you got something going on, my man. Talk to me. What's happening, Grave? What's happening?
What up, Gary? We getting back with the program and said this Gravedigger, you know what I'm saying? How y'all doing? You put anyone on the air. Now, I just got a post tonight. They want to boycott the NFL, and they want to do it on Veterans Day, which I'm a veteran. I'm a Vietnam War veteran. I've been in every war between Vietnam and Saudi. I've been there, and it does not disrespect me. I know why they kneeling. I feel why they kneeling. It has nothing to do with the flag. It has nothing to do with the soldiers. It has things to do with cops killing blacks for no reason. But they don't want to look at that. They want to look at other things about we are disrespecting the flag. Well, the flag ain't got nothing to do with black people because when the flag and the anthem was wrote, if you would look at the next 4 and 5 verses, it talks about killing black people. But see, people don't want to hear that. But this is great. Like I said, some of these are jokes, some of it ain't. We got to listen to the facts. People don't want to hear Jerry Jones, Trump, 45 Jr., which is Pence, who I thought was a man, and then I found out he was a puppet because we spent $257,000 of our taxpayer money to send him to a game, and he walked out because the players were kneeling. These were black players, these were white players, these were Hispanic players, these were Cuban players, these were all nationalities. They kneeling for one thing, and it had nothing to do with the flag, had nothing to do with the GIs, had nothing to do with nothing. I'm a GI. So, Jerry, you take this, you put it where you want to. I'm Grave. If they don't like it, they can see me, comedian Gravedigger, GD3 at AOL.com because y'all are whack. Yeah, I'm out. Peace.
Hey, boy, Greg, you off the chain, man. I don't know what to say about you, man. You always got something going on out there in the community, and you keep me live up here. But, brother, it's good to know that you're doing well. You're keeping things going on. But right now, before we do anything else, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this musical selection.
Hold up.
Get with the program.
What you talking about?
The program. The program. Get with the program.
Everybody clap to this. Say what?
Get with the program.
It starts now.
Hello and welcome back to Get With The Program Radio Show. I'm your host, Gary Jones. Today we are joined in the studio with Miss Linda Wilkins-Daniels. She is the president of the African American Caucus of the North Carolina's Democratic Party. And our conversation today is the concerns and the role of the caucus. Hello, Miss Daniels. How are you today? Welcome to Get With The Program Radio Show.
Thank you for having me, Gary. I'm glad to be here because we have so much that we need to share with our African American Caucus community.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Well, before we get started, let me just get a couple of questions, one more question. Tell me about Miss Daniels, where you're from, how you get in the caucus. Tell me some things about that.
Well, firstly, I am a veteran. I was in the Air Force for 22 years. Mm-hmm. Retired at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter, I attended Mount Olive College and received bachelor's in computer information systems. But I became involved in politics while I was there because I always look forward to the day that I could finally get to a destination where I don't have to move again.
Right.
And get involved in my community. Problems that were occurred in 30, 40 years ago are reappearing. You know, we thought that we had fought those battles and they were over, but hence here we are with a pushback from the Donald Trump administration and also other people that are that are pushing back progress. They don't want us to grow. They want to
they kind of keep
progress to cease. That's why we're here.
That's a good thing.
That's one of the reasons why we exist, because we're gonna have to learn how to push back.
Well, we're gonna get to that. That's a good thing. We're gonna get to that. Now, with your background and your education at the same time, and then you've been in the military, that even helps a lot too, because that gives you. I know you get up early, because that when I find that most military people that's been in service, they have a get up and go back themselves, and with a position as the president of this caucus, I'm sure you have that. So let's get right down into this. What is the mission of the African American Caucus of North Carolina's Democratic Party?
The mission of the African American Caucus is to promote political participation and education within the African American community, encourage African Americans to seek public office, represent issues and concerns of its membership to the Democratic Party leadership, and to work towards strengthening the Democratic Party. I don't know if you know, but there are several auxiliaries of the North Carolina Democratic Party. The teen Dems, college Dems, Democratic women, Democratic men, LGBT, progressive.
So we have different
labor,
branches. We have different branches of this caucus.
And our auxiliary is the African American Caucus.
Okay, so in other words, it's kind of spread it. You got some tentacles across the state, and this is the state.
Right.
This is all over the state.
Correct.
Okay, so your mission is basically what you said, but what your mission is, you're making sure that you touch all the counties and all of the cities here in North Carolina.
That's our position. That's part of our strategic vision, is to organize a caucus in every county across the state. Typically, attention has been paid to, the bigger cities, but the people out in the East and also in the West, they feel like they've been left out. And so they want to have a place at the table as well. They feel like they've been ignored and they want to be a part of this. So as part of our strategic vision is to include everybody across the state. And I want to also mention that we can have associate member that is not African American. We have to embrace everybody, because we have similar issues.
Okay.
And several whites have asked me, can I be a part of your caucus? And I said, why not?
And I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that.
Issues.
Right. I'm glad you said it, because that would have been a question I would ask, being that it's African American Democratic Caucus. That's a wonderful question that you just answered, that not just African Americans can be a member of this, all races can be a part of this. Now, when you said that that the caucus is in full swing across the state of North Carolina, how is it funded? Because all of this traveling, all of this housing, all these different things is involved. How is the caucus funded?
It is funded strictly by donations. If you go to our website, AACNCDP.org, and click on one of the donation buttons, it will take you to an area where you can make a donation. That's how we survive. That is the only way to survive, for an organization to be relevant. It has to have proper funding.
When was it founded, the caucus? When was the caucus founded?
It was founded on February 8, 2003 at the state election the state executive committee. There were 29 African American Democrats that looked at the Democratic Party and said, you know, our issues aren't being addressed. We need a seat at the table. And so, thus, the African American Caucus was born that day.
And it's been going strong ever since.
Well, I became involved in 2011. I can attest to what happened previously.
Right, okay.
So what we do is just look at going forward.
Going forward, I understand. Now, what is the main purpose for the caucus? And from your vision, from your perspective, what is the main purpose of the caucus?
Okay, the purpose is to seek full representation of African Americans at all levels in all activities of the Democratic Party. I've learned that, you know, some African Americans feel left out and some aren't willing to speak up. And so I've been a voice, I've been an advocate for African Americans, and I do it unapologetically because there are so many issues in our community right now that require special attention.
You're absolutely right. And we're going to touch those issues. We're going to touch quite a few as we move more into the show. Now, the caucus, I'm sure, just like any other organization, this is a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit organization?
Yes.
And I'm sure you have a board. How many members on your board? Who is your board members? I'm sure you have board members if you don't mind.
Yes, our
expressing your
board members are James Powell, first vice president from Wake County, Phyllis Perry, second vice president, and she resides in Mecklenburg County in Charlotte. Natalie Murdoch from Durham County is our third vice president. Larry Monk out of Goldsboro, which is Wayne County, is secretary. Sandra Cooley is our treasurer, and she's from Wake County. And Minister Richard Muhammad is the parliamentarian. He resides in Pitt County. Okay, so that's quite. So you have you have 7 people on your board helping you to run this organization right now. Now I heard that the annual North Carolina Democratic Party primary fundraiser, the J&J dinner, has been renamed. Yes.
Can you please comment on that for me?
Yes.
And tell me about tell my listeners about the J&J dinner, exactly what that is.
J&J dinner is the Democratic Party's main fundraiser. And it was named after Presidents Jefferson and Jackson. Doris Wallace, who is president of the African American Caucus of Johnston County, who recently moved to North Carolina from Los Angeles, contacted me last year, a few days after J&J, and she told me that Yvonne Petite, one of her members, left the dinner early, and that she was really upset because she knew the history of J&J, and she wondered why in the world is the Democratic Party still having these people as the namesakes for the primary fundraiser. And I told her that I agreed with Miss Petite and that I would, mention it to our chair, who at the time was Patsy Keever. So I went to her and I said, well, you know what? We had a conference call with the presidents, and we discussed J&J. And Yvonne Petite had conducted a lot of research, and she said, you know what? We need to rename this thing. And I said, I concur. And so when I presented it to Patsy Keever, I thought that I would have to present my talking points, but I told her it's 2016, and I don't understand why the Democratic Party is even holding a J&J dinner, and it's so offensive. And a lot of black people just said they don't want to attend J&J, knowing that history. When I approached Patsy Keever, with my talking points. I told her it's 2016, it's time to get rid of that name. And she just said, Linda, I agree. Let's do it. I'm going to name an ad hoc committee, and we're going to come up with a different name. And then at the next SEC meeting, we're going to vote on it. And then we have a new name, you know.
So basically what I'm hearing, the reason why you don't agree, what is the personal reason why you don't personally agree with having that name?
Well, because of first of all, Jefferson and Jackson were both slave owners. And Jackson pushed the Indian Removal Act, and it passed in 1830 by a congressional vote of 102 to 97, and it authorized the president to grant lands in the West in return for the removal of eastern Indian tribes. There was a Supreme Court decision in this time, Worcester versus Georgia, and the court decided that it was a bad decision to remove Indians from their homeland. So, but anyway, Jackson ignored the order, and he had Cherokees removed in violations. And, well, that's what's been told in the history books. But in 1838, 7,000 federal troops and militia commenced to Georgia and Tennessee to remove the indigenous people from their homelands out to Oklahoma. And they were forced to leave their land by the U.S. military. And on that trail to Oklahoma, so many people died from dysentery, from food shortage. You know, they had to deal with winter weather. And it was thousands that died out there on that Trail of Tears.
So let me ask you this. So what I'm hearing, the J&J dinner, this is a big dinner for whom?
It was a huge dinner. It's a dinner for the North Carolina Democratic Party. Okay. But it's been a national dinner.
So other caucuses and other places do the same type of dinner, or is just a dinner here?
Well, it was changed last year. Okay. And so, but this year.
So the new name this year?
It's a new name, and the name is the Unity Dinner.
Okay, wonderful.
And it was sold out.
So actually it did work. One moment here. In case you just tuned into the show today, we are in the studio today with Miss Linda Wilkins-Daniels. She's the president of the African American Caucus of the North Carolina Democratic Party. And our conversation today is the concerns and the roles of the caucus. But once again, don't touch that dial. We're going to take a break and pause for the calls, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hold up.
Get with the program.
What you talking about?
The program. Get with the program.
Everybody clap to this. Say what?
Get with the program.
It starts now.
Hello and welcome back to Get With The Program radio show. Again, I'm your host, Gary Jones, and we're in the studio with Miss Linda Wilkins-Daniels, and we are having a conversation about the role and the concerns of the caucus, the African American Caucus of the North Carolina Democratic Party. So we are actually the African American. We're actually going to have a conversation. So Linda, once again, welcome back. And what I want to shift gears here now. What are some of the issues right now that the caucus is handling right now? What are some of the issues right now that the caucus is focused on?
Well, we're focused on the massive buildup of the prison industrial complex. I believe that is the gravest problem that faces our community. Black boys and men are disproportionately targeted, arrested, and thrown in jails and given high bail bonds, even though the U.S. Supreme Court ruled back in 1983 that bail bond was really unconstitutional. Many remain incarcerated until the district attorney decides to bring the person to court, even though there's no case against that person legally. And they end up spending 1 or 2 years, sometimes in a jail, waiting to be heard in a court for a misdemeanor charge. And you know, that is just outrageous.
So with that being said, do you think, Linda, that the state or the federal government is building prisons constantly to lock more African Americans up?
Of course.
Okay.
They target us, you know, because the 13th Amendment to the Constitution really didn't abolish slavery. There's a statement left in there that still allow slavery, what we call modern day slavery. And it's not by accident. They are targeted when they are kids in kindergarten. And so after... And
according to some of your notes I read, that's the prison to school pipeline.
That's the school to prison
pipeline. So they're targeted at an early age.
Absolutely.
Is what you're saying. So how do they do that? Is it a certain age? How do they do that? I mean, how's that happening?
Well, you look at, you know, first of all, they're going to target black boys. They call them troublemakers. And they look for reasons to dismiss them, suspend them from school, and they start building a record, even as early as kindergarten, and calling them trouble kids.
Now I'm gonna play a devil's advocate on this. When you say they, who are you saying? You said they do this to us. Who are they?
Well, some of them are resource officers.
Okay.
Some are teachers. And sadly, some of the statistics that I've seen, white teachers are having, you know, are more tolerant to some of these black kids than our own black teachers. And see, that's why we have to start asking for things that we want and demanding things. And we have to do it for ourselves, and we also have to do it for our kids, because our kids can't speak for themselves.
Right.
And if we sit back and let things remain as they are, they will remain the same. And so I'm adamant about changing this system and putting a spotlight on the people and the politicians that's responsible for that.
Now, another one of your notes that I read on July the 24th, 2017, and this is in relation to bail bonding. July the 24th, 2017, U.S. Senator Kamala D. Harris delivered remarks at the annual Federal Policy and Legislations Workshop at the NAACP's 108th National Convention. Now, Harris discussed the practice of money bail, which requires individuals awaiting trial to remain in jail unless they pay for their release. What are your comments on that?
Well, I have to thank Senator Harris for bringing that issue, because you don't hear it here in the state of North Carolina. And surprisingly, Senator Rand Paul, you know, he's joined with Senator Harris and introduced a bill called the Pretrial Integrity and Safety Act of 2017.
Okay.
A bipartisan bail reform bill, which encourages states to reform or replace the practice of money bail. People are just, so many of our people are just locked up, and it's like the key is just thrown away. There's no compassion for these people that are in jails, awaiting trial, even though the court calendar is always full. If you ever visit a courtroom, most of the time, they are continuing cases. So when they continue the case, then this person is sent back to the jail. And so it's just a process. I was in the courtroom down in Wayne County one day, and so it was a guy that had a misdemeanor, and he lived in Richmond, Virginia. And he said, I'm really tired of coming here every month, you know, to face these charges. But every time I come, it is a continuance of the case. So, the case calendar is already overloaded because they have too many people there. that are jailed.
Which brings an important observation to me is that when they're continuing these cases, there's people who is continuing to get paid.
Absolutely.
At the same time. So this is constantly, I'm glad you brought that. This is constantly costing the state money. That's a good observation.
Right.
It's constantly. So every time they continue a case, now we continue to pay these DAs, everybody that's coming to work. So this is a money rotating thing. Now, but when we go back to the bonding.
These court-appointed attorneys.
Exactly.
You know, they're getting paid for virtually nothing.
Right.
They don't even go and visit these people when they are jailed. It's just a matter of keeping them in there.
Right.
And so, you know, people don't understand this system, but they should. And that's why I'm here, so that I could express some of these
So this bonding thing
grievances.
Here. So the bonding thing, we're talking about getting this bond thing straightened out. At a certain amount of time, so that people ain't sitting in jail forever.
Yeah, especially for a misdemeanor.
For misdemeanor.
You see, it's a different thing if this person is in there for rape or armed robbery or
so basically,
murder.
We need the court system to move a little faster, is what we say. They need to move a little faster.
Yeah, and plus they need to do something besides. They need to eliminate this bail bond program. We need bail bond reform.
Wow. That's some real good information. Once again, we're in the studio with Miss Linda Wilkins-Daniels, and we are having a conversation about the concerns and the role of the African American Caucus of the North Carolina Democratic Party. She is the president of that organization. And we're going to take another break, and don't you touch that dial, and we'll be right back after this message. And Linda, once again, when we left off, we was talking about the bonding and making sure that people, when they go into court or their own trial, that they can go ahead and try them and get it over with instead of sending them back and they got to keep coming back. Because I've seen instances like that too, when the cases are continued for whatever reason. I think the person that's actually on trial should be the one that asks for a continuance. But sometimes these judges, they continue the cases for whatever reason, particularly in a small town. That can be a really bad situation.
Well, the court-appointed attorney continues the case most of the time, because that's where they make their income. A lot of these court-appointed attorneys, you know, can't ordinarily get clients, and you know, and this is a good way. You know, the money is consistent coming in when a lawyer is a court-appointed attorney. So, you know, the incentive is to keep the person there as long as possible and make as much money as possible.
Now, you had mentioned something to me earlier about debtors' prisons, which was outlawed in the United States nearly 200 years ago, and more than 30 years ago, the United States Supreme Court made it clear that judges cannot send people to jail because they are too poor to pay their court fines. What do you mean when we was really talking about that?
Well, and you know, a person can commit a crime, and instead of, you know, the family doesn't have enough money to cover a bond. The typical bond is like $20,000. And typically, the people that are incarcerated, they don't have money for a bail bond. You know, a family can be sitting inside a courtroom waiting on their loved one, and learn that, you know, the bail is going to be $20,000. But collectively, they do not have the money to keep that person out of jail. But so the person is jailed. You know, the person has a job but can't go to the job due to the incarceration. Could have a family. You know, the parent isn't there for the child or their children. And you know, and it can be like a parent that's a single parent, a female. You know, so the kids end up in foster care, all because of, you know, some small crime. And the reason why they can't the reason why they can't get out is simply because they don't have the money. And in a system that is supposed to have blind justice, is it not an injustice that the person who can pay to get out of jail gets out for the same offense, but the person who can't pay to get out of jail sits in jail with all of these residual consequences. That is wrong. It's immoral.
Now, your organization that you're president of, is a statewide organization. Do you find that these type of situations dealing with courts, dealing with this bonding thing, is this happening in the whole state, or would you say there's primary areas that we see a lot of this happening in?
It is happening all across the state, all across this nation, and it's more prevalent in southern states and states where, there are a lot of blacks. And it's not a secret. We need to get this message out to people about this bail bond system, and we need to approach our legislators, statewide and national, to let them know that, we're not going to stand for this anymore. And if we don't do anything about it, it would just remain the same. Now, is these issues also, being that you're over the state, are these issues also affecting the Hispanic community as well? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It affects plenty of minorities. It affects Arabs. What about being straight blunt? What about the white race? The white race, do they suffer some of these concerns as well? Absolutely. So this is across. It's not just a black problem. This is across the board. But we are disproportionately targeted. Okay, I got it. There are a lot of people that suffer from these. In the courtroom, I see a lot of white people that are affected by this. I've been taking a lady to court, a white lady, that lives in the trailer court. I've been taking her to court now for about 6 months. And so when I drop her off, she say, well, I'm going to get a continuance. And I said, how you know? She said, because my lawyer said I'm getting one. So she's been doing this forever. So why don't they just go on and charge her? Try her in court and get this over so that the court is not, it'll lessen the amount of court cases. Okay. But they don't want to do that. So basically what I'm hearing, the caucus primary, one of the caucus primary issues right now is that bonding. Yeah, that's one of them. That's one of them. We have so many. Now, what do you think about, I'm going to shift gears in a total different direction. Now, and this is more on the national and the federal level, and I don't know if this will work for you, but with the protests going on right now, what is your observation with the protests with the NFL players kneeling to the flag? I am a veteran, but I agree 100%. With who? Colin Kaepernick. Because I care more about the Constitution than I do a piece of cloth. And when people understand, we have the right to protest. We have a constitutional right to do so. And so we have a president that is making demands on people that, NFL players, that, what, you need to stand up and honor that flag. Well, he's never even served in the military. He's never served. And so, it's just misinformation out there. People care more about a piece of cloth than the Constitution. Do you think? And plus, years ago, football players didn't have to stand on the side of the court, stand on the side of the line. They stayed in the locker room until the game was ready, But when the Defense Department started giving money to the different leagues, to have a patriotic image, that's when everything changed. Why should a person be forced to stand up and honor the flag? They shouldn't be. Why can't they stay in the locker room? No, because some of these owners have the slave mentality. You think, even though these players are black and they making multi-million dollars, I still own you. I can tell you when to stand up. I can tell you can't kneel. So I stand with Kaepernick because I stand with the Constitution. Now, if this situation doesn't work out with the kneeling and the flag situation, do you think the NFL players should be fired for kneeling during this national anthem? Do you think they should be fired? Well, actually, I think they should stay in the locker room until the game is ready.
What about, I have some other guests on the show, and we were expressing the concerns of this going into other sports and the concerns of this perhaps coming into the HBCUs. Do you think that in HBCU colleges, do you think they should kneel?
If that's their choice.
So basically what I'm hearing from you, it's really a preference of choice. If that's what you choose to do.
That's it.
That's
choice.
it. And you were a veteran. So you stood for the flag, right? You stood for the flag, and most veterans put their hand over their heart. Right?
Yeah, I did that when I was in the military.
But if it was your choice back then, would you had done it? If you did it because you was required to do it, but these NFL guys, it's nowhere in a contract that they're required to do this. So
Right.
I think I'm agreeing with you. I feel that they should have the right to go and do what they feel. But in the military, you had to do that because that was part of the job. But the military is the federal government. But now, with the federal government not putting funding into the NFL, I agree that these players should have the right to do what they feel is works for them and their preference. Now, I do know the government does put some funding in there, but it's not something that is really required.
Okay. Yeah, the Pentagon changed the game of football.
Okay.
They wanted to mandate that the game be patriotic. You know, at the Super Bowl, you see all of these beautiful planes flying over. It's a beautiful scene, but I don't think it belongs at a football game. And Donald Trump shouldn't try and force his belief on someone else. Put these people back in the locker room and let them know, let them hear the applause and the people on the microphone announce that the game is about to begin, and let them bust in on the field like it used to be. Now, people don't want to see all that patriotic stuff. I really don't.
I know you are a person that keeps up with the news and things of that nature, being the president of the Caucus. What do you think about when the vice president went there to the game and he walked out? Do you think that was a stunt, or was that real?
It was a stunt. It was a waste of the taxpayers' money. And how long was he there? He was sending a message, to his base, that don't understand the Constitution or refuses to, abide by the Constitution. Donald Trump, our reality president, sent him there on a mission to intimidate those football players because, it started at the San Francisco 49ers game. So that was a message. We're going to send it to the game, to the team that started all this confusion. We're going to shut it down. It was ineffective. And I don't believe that, I believe that these players are going to come up with a different plan, another way to protest. But they certainly shouldn't be silenced.
And speaking of the president, because that's a lot that's going on in the news, how has any of the decisions of the president affected the caucus? Anything that he said, anything he's done, anything he's trying to push right now, do you see it that being some type of influence that would affect the things that the caucus is putting in place?
Well, see, what really bothers me is President Obama recognized that there were too many people in federal prison. The numbers increased over 200%. He recognized that these mandatory sentences was just outrageous. I read an article a few days ago. A person had 2 ounces of marijuana. And do you know he's in federal prison? 57 years of incarceration. It was a mandatory sentence that was imposed on him.
And where was this? Where was this?
I can't recall.
It was in America. I'm
state
sure
it was in. But you know what? But it happens all the time.
Right.
I know a guy from Wayne County that's in federal prison. He was given 27 years for some marijuana. Although the police didn't confiscate any marijuana. He went on the word. of some of his so-called friends, because the friends were frightened because they had been threatened that these long sentences would be imposed. See, they have this thing called ghost drugs. A lot of people don't know about ghost drugs.
Ghost drugs. What are ghost drugs? I don't know about ghost drugs. When I hear the word ghost drugs, I'm thinking about something that is planted or it's not really there, made up. It's not real.
Exactly.
Okay.
See, a lot of these agents, they're trying to promote their career. And so what they do is make these people make these claims about interactions they've had with drug dealers, these low-level drug dealers. And they never present these drugs in a court. That's why they're called ghost drugs. They go on the word of snitches.
With no evidence.
So, no evidence.
Or perhaps they might have...
And the federal government knows about it, They have a program, federal snitch program. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
They have that. And so that's how they increase the numbers in the federal prison.
So we're getting close to wrapping this up. So what is actually... when we talk about the caucus on the whole state level, what areas of the state right now that you hear from your leaders in the other parts of the state that has a lot of racial issues? Because we know this all over the state, but there got to be some places that have that are more prevalent than others.
Well, in Mecklenburg County, where the police shot and killed unarmed people, black men. And I say that, white people have issues too. They really do. They have problems with the police. But the same week that the last man was killed in Charlotte, there was also a 17-year-old that was shot by the police, but we didn't hear anything about it on the news media. So, a lot of white people say, well, we are under siege too. The police doesn't respect anybody, any community. And so what we have to do is, try and fight back on this. But the police in every state across this country are involved in some type of brutality, and it must be addressed. Our politicians must address it. They must, and the people gonna have to start calling their legislators
and doing something about it. Now, with that being said, a lot of my listeners, some people know about the caucus and some don't. But what is it that the caucus has done that whether you were in office or someone else in office, or what have the caucus done that we as a community can recognize and know that it was done by the caucus?
Well, before or during now, yeah. Well, see, I wasn't with the caucus prior to 2011.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, like when the NAACP is doing something from HKOJ, and we can see the results. I'm just trying to figure out what is the result that I can see that the caucus is doing or have done.
Well, we're working on changing the mindsets of African Americans.
Okay,
that's the biggest thing. We have to inform African Americans and remind them of their power. They have power. They should speak out. So many are reluctant to speak out. We just have to have them address our issues. And those sort of things I've been doing is going to these legislators, asking them, when are you going to address our problems? You deal with DACA, and I think it's admirable. But HB2, there's room under the umbrella to address our issues. After all, we over 44% of the North Carolina Democratic Party electorate, and we're very loyal. So they should address our issues. And so that's the thing that we're pushing back. We're going to have to change the game. We're going to just have to be more outspoken. I look around Raleigh and I see a lot of things that are going on, but we're going to have to start speaking out having more assemblies, having things happen, make things happen.
Right.
And it takes time, you know.
Now, as far as people wanting to get in contact with you, and phone numbers, because my listeners, they're going to want to know, because they really want to know how to get involved with this. So what's the website address again, and if there's any numbers to possibly get in contact?
Yes, the number that you can contact us is at 919-396-5633. The website is AAC-NCDP.org. And you can find us on Facebook, Twitter.
So pretty much the social media trends, you're definitely there. So once again, as I'm in the studio with Miss Linda Wilkins-Daniels, she's the president of the African American Caucus of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and we was having a general conversation on what the caucus is doing, the role of the caucus, and the different issues. And if you want to get more information about what this organization does, she gave you the website address, and the phone number again is 919-396, I believe 5637. I mean, that is the number, and you can definitely now, Miss Daniels, Miss Linda Wilkins-Daniels. We're gonna wrap this up. What would be a final thought or a final comment that you'd like to say to my listeners?
Well, there's an issue that really needs to be addressed right away, dealing with Duke Energy. I attended a utility commission meeting a few nights ago, and Duke Energy is requesting a rate hike to its customers due to coal ash. Last year when we had Matthews, it showed a lot of the flood zones that these coal ash plants are located, and it's contaminating the water. It's killing a lot of people with cancer. At this meeting, I learned that 15 people in a 1 mile radius died in 1 year. That water is wasted. I mean, it's contaminated in the Cape Fear River, and we have water also that's contaminated in the Cape Fear River. Gen X is contaminated the water, and Chemours is the company that's dumping all of this Gen X in the water. And Lisa Sorg of Public Policy, NC Public Policy, she uncovered a story, and she uncovered the number of lobbyists that were responsible for Gen X contamination for over 4 decades. So the people down there in Wilmington cannot drink that water right now. But Duke Power contaminated the water in the Neuse and other places across North Carolina, but yet they want a rate hike. It's irresponsible. The people shouldn't be responsible for their mistakes, and for their bad business deals. So they need to start calling the legislators and tell them that the citizens shouldn't be responsible for the failures of Duke Power.
Right. Well, that's good information to know, Miss Daniels. We're going to have to wrap this up. Once again, you're in the studio today with Gary Jones, and we had Miss Linda Wilkins-Daniels, and she's the president of the African American Caucus of North Carolina's Democratic Party. And we had a conversation today about the concerns and the roles of the caucus. Once again, I want to thank you for being here today. It is a pleasure to have you here, Miss Daniels.
Well, thank you for having me, Gary.
And I want to keep up with you. I want to make sure that that I keep up with what you're doing in the community, because there's a lot more you do in the community that I know, because I see you and I'm paying attention to you. You're actually moving around the state.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Went over there to the mountains and organized a few caucuses over there. Buncombe County, Gaston County, Rutherford, Henderson. So we keeping it moving.
One thing about it, sometimes it's better to move in silence because you get stuff done. I know you're moving. Trust me when I say. Once again, thank you for listening to Get With The Program Radio Show. I am your host, Gary Jones, and always remember to keep it positive. And until next time,
Get with the program.
What you talking about?
The program.